certainly want to issue a warm and hearty welcome to our Sister Thursday Club. We appreciate your joining us today, and we're really excited about our program with Robbie Adell. We think it'll be very interesting for all of us. In the meantime, we will start off with our invocation by Ingrid Keller.
I chose to choose a prayer from the Rotary International site, the way that John Leach does. John Leach, I just want to be like John Leach. So everyone, let us pray. The gift of Rotary is evident in this Zoom room. Friends all about us with special gifts to share. We ask you to be with each and every one of us as we move about our daily lives, always keeping in mind the special talents we have. Let us be fair and kind to those in our paths today. Let us focus on the objects of Rotary and implement these with your help. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Ingrid. And David, can you bring up the flag, please? Thank you, sir. And if you all join the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States,
United States of America,
and to the
republic for which it stands,
one
nation,
under
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. And one just quick reminder, we are planning to have an outdoor meeting at the Salt Block for our club on October the 13th. It'll be at noon, and you'll be getting a notification that you will be asked to respond to, so we'll know how many box lunches to have for that particular meeting. Our program today, by the way, is going to be a really good one. We've asked Dr. Adell of the Hickory Public School system to fill us in on how things are going as far as the COVID-19 as far as the COVID-19 problem is affecting the school system. Dr. Adell joined the Hickory Public School System in 2015. He's been in the educational field for 36 years with North Carolina Public Schools, which includes coaching, driving a school bus, and serving as a teacher in both middle and high schools. He was with Montgomery County prior to joining us. He has served as an assistant principal, a director, an assistant superintendent, and he's also serving as an adjunct professor at the University of the Cumberlands in Williamsburg, Virginia since 2007. He is known for his success in leading school academic achievement growth, and his vision is for successful new concepts to meet the needs of the children. He's the first minority superintendent to serve Hickory Public Schools since the district was established in 1903. He and his wife Melody are parents of 2 daughters, with the oldest a senior at UNC Greensboro and the youngest a senior at Hickory High. I can tell you that when he's not working on administrative duties, Dr. Adell does mess around with old cars. And I know that because a couple of years ago, he gave me a trophy for my 1960 Ford convertible that was in a little local contest that we had. So he does work on old cars, and he occasionally gets in a game of golf. I do wish that we were meeting in person so that we could give Dr. Adell the warm round of applause that he deserves for joining us today, but we can't do that. So we can only say, Dr. Adell, welcome. We're glad to have you with us, and we're anxious to hear what you have to say.
I miss being with you as often as I used to be. This job is extremely, well, right now anyway, very demanding, but it is nice to be with y'all, and I thank you for inviting me to share a little bit about some of the steps we've taken in public schools around this pandemic. So in order for me to do that and to give you a clearer picture, what I'd like to do is to kind of give chronologically, kind of go through what happened and bring you up to date as to where we are. And quite honestly, you will find similarities in what I'm about to say to many of the school districts that are here in Catawba County and surrounding Catawba County. So to get started back in March, without any notice, I think we had superintendents in the state had about a 2-hour window. We were notified that the governor was going to come on TV and close schools. And that's exactly what he did. He came on TV and he closed schools, and he put every kid, we have 4,100 kids that are registered for Hickory Public Schools, put them all on remote learning. So our staff had 24 hours to turn around and began teaching kids at home. Now, thankful for the K64 project, if you all are familiar with that, is the partnership of businesses and public schools and the community college. Most of our, well, actually all of our middle school students and our high school students had computers. And so the transition with those folks were relatively very simple. We were still in need of some equipment for elementary. Fortunately, we had been buying those over the past few years. And so we spent the next few days distributing out equipment to elementary students. And what they're using, some kids have Chromebooks and some of the children have iPads. Then we began to work. Our teachers did a phenomenal job jumping right in there where they left off, teaching the kids. Kids were connecting. There still was a sense of uncertainty, I think, in our community, and quite honestly, in our state about where COVID was going and how deadly it really was. We continue to work with our kids, our staff. I was Zooming with them. I think this, is probably my 1 millionth Zoom since all of this started, to try to make sure that we were all on the same page and that we were delivering meaningful lessons to students, and we were doing the very best that we could. Now, to be very honest, what we're doing now looks a lot different than what we did in March because we've had time to adequately plan. March was from March until the end of school. It was hit and miss in some areas, particularly trying to get kids to log in and to know how to connect with their teachers and things of that nature. It was very difficult to do that. The other thing that we found very quickly is that we have a lot of students within the city that did not have internet connectivity. And so we spent some money to get hotspots for students, and we distributed those as well. And we're also part of a 1 millionth project, and that project provided 200 hotspots, and we purchased an additional 200 hotspots that we gave out to kids as they were picking up devices, particularly those that couldn't, that didn't have any way of connecting with their teachers. So in addition to that, starting that very next day, we had a larger job ahead of us, and what we're calling now our district heroes. Our child nutrition program and our transportation programs merged together to begin food delivery to students that had nutritious needs. There are a lot of kids in our area that qualified for free and reduced lunch. Many of our schools are Title I, and we wanted to make sure that those kids were getting what they needed from a nutritious standpoint each and every day. So we started packing lunches and putting them on school buses, and we went door to door, which was really unheard of because that was before masks and all of those things. And nobody really knew much about how the coronavirus would spread, but we knew that we had to deliver the lunches and the breakfast for these children. And our folks did a phenomenal job with that. We were delivering 4 days a week. We also set up 3 different sites where parents could drive in and pick up their meals so that didn't have to get out of the car. And to date, we have delivered over 300,000 meals to the families here in Hickory, in the Hickory City Serving District. And I'm very proud of that fact and very proud of my team and making sure our kids are receiving what they need. So going back to the spring, it was short after that the governor came back on, or actually it was the Department of Public Instruction came back and said that, pretty much said that seniors were done for the year. And this was in early April, which means that they wanted seniors to be held harmless. The state had already petitioned the federal government to give us a waiver on all of the end of the year assessments that kids take, which meant that that would also be a waiver for the end of the year state assessments and local assessments, where that means that kids didn't have to take any test at the end of the school year. And so they wanted seniors to be held harmless. So that's when we started seeing, of course, seniors not connecting with us. We still had a month left of school, and they got senioritis real early when they knew that they were going to be held harmless. And we were having a hard time with our senior class. But nonetheless, some of them stayed with us, but most of them, kind of finished early. And so as we went through it, we were under the impression, honestly, across the state, because keep in mind, every week we were having Zoom meetings with the Department of Public Instruction that we were going to start back to school. We never assumed from the very beginning that we would be out and not have a regular graduation. And so it wasn't until the end of April, the beginning of May, that we all realized, oh my, we're not going to have a traditional graduation. We have to do something different to graduate our seniors. And I think everybody started panicking and scurrying around to find out what to do in order to graduate seniors. So basically what we did, we had 2 great ceremonies. HCAM did theirs virtually. The kids were on Zoom, similar to what we are right now. The teachers and the administrators were in their graduation robes. They conducted the ceremony and awarded each child their diploma via Zoom. The high school Hickory High School took a different approach. They ended up setting up the gymnasium and invited only 10 graduates at a time to come in with their families to graduate. So it took a few hours for us to get through that, but it worked extremely well. We were very proud of that. And then we graduated the seniors. So as we go into summer, most of you heard about or probably read something on CARES Act. And I know Cliff Moon has, because he's all over this stuff. The CARES Act is federal money that was coming down that to help local school districts and private schools as well to deal with the pandemic. Hickory got $760,000 in CARES money. Most of that, or a large percentage of that money, went to the child nutrition program, because keep in mind, we still were feeding kids, and I was running school buses. So I had salaries to pay. We had to we had to purchase the food, because none of that's free. And we continued doing that throughout the summer. We ran buses. You probably saw yellow buses all summer long. Wasn't carrying kids, carrying food. And we continue to do that to this day. We're still doing it. So the other monies, the other part of that money for us, we used to buy additional hotspots. We also had to buy hand sanitizer, PPE, thermometers, hand sanitizer dispensers. So we went through the list that had been recommended of all this stuff that we needed to purchase in order to make our schools safe for re-entry. During the same time, DHHS and the Department of Public Instruction were working on a document that would reopen the schools across the state of North Carolina. So we knew that we needed to stockpile all this stuff, and we needed to get it out very quickly. And that's exactly what we did. And we also were able to purchase some additional computers for student use. So that kind of brings us through the summer. Spent the whole summer planning, thinking that we would more than likely start school remotely. We figured that they would not be bringing us back at the beginning of the summer. As we saw in the summertime, if you go back and look at North Carolina's trend, their trend of COVID-19 went up last summer. It kind of led us to believe that we were not going to be coming back to school. We spent a lot of time virtually training teachers on how to teach online. And we spent a lot of time preparing and sanitizing our school buildings for the teachers' return, because we knew the teachers would be back. So come August, the board decided in late summer that we would stay remote. And that's exactly what we did. We were the only school district out of the 3 in Catawba County that chose to stay remote for the first 4 weeks of school. We wanted to see, we felt good about the plan that we put in place and that we could deliver meaningful lessons. And I'm proud of our kids. We had 99% connectivity. We were seeing every kid every day via Zoom. It was not a situation where we were posting lessons on a platform they completed and then send it in. We were actually dialoguing with kids, and we still are. And so that has worked out extremely well. In fact, several of our teachers were asked to model their classroom, their online classroom instruction for a national program. So really, really got after it this summer, making sure that we were not going to be left behind, if you will, in terms of that. Now, the most interesting thing that I've seen, and I got to share this, is teaching kindergarten by Zoom. Now, that is a trick. But believe it or not, we have teachers that actually connect with over 22 kindergartners at one time, and they're absolutely able to teach those kids via Zoom, including exercise. They get up and move around and they exercise as well. It's amazing to watch, but they have become masters of that. So the board decided moving forward that we would begin the process of bringing kids back under a Plan B. The governor has indicated that folks can come back under a Plan B. And what a Plan B is basically you have 2 days where you have a group of students, and then you have 2 more days for another group of students. So that's what we did in our elementary and middle schools. But because we have an enrollment of 1,040 students at Hickory High School, we decided that 2 groups would still be too large. So we devised a plan to bring them back in 3 groups. So they have an A week, a B week, and a C week. And we rotate. And 1/3 comes on the A week, 1/3 comes on the B week, and 1/3 comes on the C week. And so that keeps the class sizes down. And I think that was something that the teachers appreciated, because there's still some apprehension out there about COVID and impacts that it could have. In addition to that, we went through the schools and ensured the teachers had what they needed. Many of them had ordered plexiglass barriers so that they would have something to stand behind. We accommodated them with that. We have these electrostatic foggers where we go in and we disinfect classrooms. We do that weekly. Anything that we could do to bring the comfort level of our teachers to some sense of normalcy, we've attempted to do, because we knew that we were going to have parents that needed for their kids to be in school. And with that option there, we wanted to make sure that everyone was safe. I don't know if you all know, but the state spent, I think it was 15 million. It could, don't quote me, it was a lot on face masks. So every child in North Carolina that's in school from the kindergarten through the 12th grade, and every school employee in North Carolina received a pack of 5 face masks that was compliments of the governor. And so we distributed those out. They were from Hanes, and they're all white. So you'll see a lot of kids walking around town on our campuses wearing lily white, extremely white face masks made from the same material your t-shirts are made from, because they're from Hanes. But those were all not donated, they were all given to us by the governor's office, something that he used part of his care funding to do. And so we're just now in week 2 of having our AABB groups in. This is week B for Hickory High School, so we still have one more week of kids that we haven't seen. Now, here's the trick. We have 1/3 of the students that are in our class, but we have 2/3 of the students, specifically at Hickory High, that are at home. So the question may be, what is happening with those kids at home? They are being taught remotely. And that's where I think people have to understand how much this is weighing in on teachers. They're having to do them both. They're having to teach the folks in the classroom and engage with the people at home as well. You know, and it's extremely difficult, and it's extremely hard on them, and I get it. But there's really no other way to do it. And this is the thing this is a practice across the state. Teachers are teaching both groups, and we can't neglect one group versus another, because right now, none of us in the state has any more testing waivers. So we're expected to take end of the year exams in May and June. So that's where we are. And bringing you up to date, this past week, or the end of last week, the governor has said now that the elementary schools can transition to Plan A. Plan A is bring everyone back. And that was a shock. None of us in public ed really saw that coming. We knew that it would happen at some point, but certainly not as quickly as it did. And so now we're all scrambling to try to figure out a plan on how to bring all of those kids back at K6, or excuse me, K5 at one time, because there's still restrictions. Right now, we can only have one person per seat on a school bus because of social distancing. So with that being said, it is going to take a good chunk of our morning to get kids to school if we've got 300 or 400 or 500 kids that we need to deliver, and we can only put one child per seat on a school bus. That bus is going to have to make multiple runs every morning. And so those are all things that we're working on right now to determine how to do that. In addition to that, we're still not allowed to use common places, which means at Hickory High, the mall is off limits. In our elementary schools, the cafeteria are off limits. We can't have kids conjugate in the cafeteria. So we have to do food delivery to classrooms. And when you bring all of those kids back, it puts a strain on our child nutrition program because they only have limited staff. So those are things that we're working through right now to try to determine how we're going to do that. And our school board will meet, I believe, on Monday of next week to have that discussion, to see whether or not we want to do that. Do we want to stay on B for a while? However they decide, we will be ready to do whatever they decide for us to do. But it has been a journey, and quite honestly, it is heavy burden on our public education system right now. We're teaching several groups of kids, and I didn't mention that we still have, even when kids come back, parents still have the option of leaving their children virtually. So we're still going to have kids that will learn at home just because their parents are not comfortable with them. And I understand that, with not comfortable with them coming into the school, into the school arena with COVID. So our teachers are still going to be burdened with having to, and don't mean burden, but it's a dilemma. They have to teach the face-to-face kids, and they're also going to have to teach those kids that are online and remain at home. So those are all things that the school board has to consider. Right now, we have about 1,000 children across Hickory that have decided to go virtual. So we're teaching 1,000 kids remotely right now. And that's, that's a lot of kids. That's a lot of kids. And the other thing that we're seeing is that a lot of our high school kids, they don't like the restrictions where you have to be 6 feet apart, you have to wear your face mask. High school kids are generally very social. This kind of takes away from that. So most of them are opting to go to receive virtual instruction. They don't want to be in a school building that is that restrictive. And so that's our larger number of remote folks are from Hickory High School and HCAM. That's kind of how it's going. Most interesting, the highest number of students in attendance right now are our middle schools. And those of us that have taught middle school, we definitely understand why mom and dad sent them to school when they had the opportunity. So we're seeing quite a number of middle school students on A day and B day show up, and so and that's kind of what we expected. Elementary is hit and miss. Some elementary schools are not seeing the numbers and others are in terms of face-to-face. So that's kind of where we are. That's kind of a journey of what kind of my journey this past spring into summer and early fall. It has been quite a journey. I think most of us have never seen anything like this in our business. And I think there's a tremendous frustration around. And one of the things I was curious to learn the other day is that we've seen the highest number of turnover in superintendents in the history. They're leaving daily. We've got 3 people, I think, that are leaving within the next 2 months. It's just the turnover, and it's because of stress across the state. It's just every community is different. Their needs are different, and school boards are struggling with decisions on how and when to bring kids back. And I think that a lot of times superintendents get caught in the crossfire between protecting their staff and following the will of the board. And so sometimes it gets really rough. And so we're seeing quite a turnover. I think I've counted 8 or 9 superintendents in the last little while that have retired. And so that's all interesting to me. It kind of tells the tale of how stressful this really is. I've jabbered enough. I'll be glad to take any questions that you all might have regarding school and how we're going to proceed moving forward.
Dr. Adell, this is Cliff Moon. 2 things really. Did you explain, and I may have just missed part of it, how you're spending the CARES Act money across? And the other thing you just mentioned about turnover in superintendents, have you seen any numbers on that with principals?
Start with CARES Act. We spent a large percentage of money that we got from the CARES Act went back to child nutrition. For the other monies, what we've done is we bought license for Zoom. We bought 200 hotspots. We bought 100 computers, gallons upon gallons of hand sanitizer, Clorox wipes, hand sanitizing dispense stations, thermometers. We bought thermometers that you can hold your hand up, and we placed each one of those on the bus so that when kids get ready to enter on the bus, they just hold their hand up to the thermometer, because we're required to check their temperature before we put them on a bus. We spent a lot of money on cleaning supplies. We also bought those electrostatic foggers. We bought 9 of those, which is 1 for every school. So the little money that we had left after child nutrition, we really did use it to buy materials that we needed to be safe. And as far as teacher turnover, one of the things that I was concerned about, and I think most superintendents were, is whether or not teachers that had 30 years or close to 30 years, whether or not they would just say, I'm done. I'm not, I don't want to do this. And we have seen a little of that in Hickory, but it's not been extremely high. And we also have teachers who are medically fragile, or who is a caregiver to a medically fragile parent who is not at work. We were able to give them waivers to work either remotely from home, or they took a leave of absence. So we've seen a little shift, but thank God it hasn't been a large shift. These folks are troopers. They're actually coming to work every day. And some of them are living in, they're taking care of mom and dad. Or we have one young lady who comes to work every day that just finished cancer treatment. So these people are remarkable. They love the kids, they love their job, and they show up every day. Any other question? That was a good one.
Dr. Adell, Michael Blackburn.
Hey, sir.
Just curious, it must be harder and take more hours to teach the way you're teaching by having smaller classes and then duplicating classes. What's the impact on your budget?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mr. Blackburn. One of the things that well, let me back up. Right now, today, and that's what I do most of the day, is study numbers right now, because I've got to balance it. We've lost 100 kids. We know that when we eventually get back to a normal operational mode, we'll probably get 80% of those back. But due to homeschool and private school, we lost 100 kids during the pandemic. And part of the reason for that is because the way that the school is operating with 2 days on and 3 days off or whatnot, it didn't fit the needs of the parents. And so if they had the means and the opportunity, they put their kids in either private or Christian school, or some folks are homeschooling their kid. The concern we had was that the state was going to revert money back, because we're normally paid from our enrollment from the previous year. And so I was scared to death that they were going to do that, and they did not. They gave us a waiver. They gave every school district in the state a waiver on ADM, which is average daily membership. So we're fine there. We're holding our own as far as our budget's concerned. We're pitching pennies. We really are. The thing about federal money, and we talked about the CARES Act, that money I can't spend for anything except for, and I have to keep records of how that money is spent. It's a completely different ball game when you are spending federal money. So we're holding our own and handling it the best way that we can. But I do think, and rumors are, that we're going to see, some real budget problems over the next couple of years across the state in public education. But I think this has changed education forever. I think that there are kids that will never step foot into a classroom. They'll learn remotely because it fits them. And so districts are going to have to now adapt to providing online instruction for kids K through 12 if they want to keep their enrollment up. Well, that was a good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Adell, if you'll click on your chat button, I think you'll see some of the people
Okay.
type out some questions.
All right, let me go back up. How do I handle stress? That's what Peter Nelson. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. That's a great question. I think my neighbors could probably tell you that I have cut my lawn probably 7, 8, 9 times a week. So I think I'm finding stress on a lawnmower. That has really helped. I didn't realize how relaxing cutting your grass is. So that's one way. And then the other way, when my dad passed years ago, I inherited an old car from him. And so I tinker with it just to kind of get away and deal with that. So, but it is stressful. So I appreciate you recognizing that. Have a question. do you have any ideas how long you will have to continue with A, B, and C schedule? That's a great question, Lou. No, I don't know. And you know, there's no ending in sight right now as far as we know. The COVID numbers are really going to be the predictor when North Carolina transitions out of these ABC plans and brings kids back to school full time. I will say that one of the normal things that's going to happen is that we are going to see high school sports. I don't know if you all are aware of that. We are. The North Carolina High School Athletic Association decided back in September that they were going to alter the high school sports schedule for high school students across the state. We'll start in November with cross country and volleyball. And then we'll transition into basketball a little later in November. And then from there, we're going to transition into football. And football will be played in February and March. And then from there will be the summer sports. So I know our kids are happy that we're able to do that. It brings some sense of normalcy to their lives, that they're going to have a chance to do it. And it's kind of odd when you turn on the TV on Friday nights and you see people in Arizona, Florida, and Georgia actually playing high school football. But I think our governor's been extremely cautious and really looking after the well-being of folks. Another question, do you feel there's a likelihood the hybrid virtual model will come in? I do. I think we are going to probably go into the spring. Now, there are rumors that the governor is going to come back on before the election and open up 6 through 12. But I really believe that he believes in the science. At least that's what he's told our organization over and over again. And I think our COVID numbers are going to have to stay at a certain level. I know that they're looking at the positivity rate across the state. They want it at 5% or below. And if it stays there, yes, I think we will see kids come back before the holidays. If it fluctuates, I don't think so. I think it will be after the first of the year before we start seeing kids come in and out. Any other questions? I think that was all the questions that I have. And thank you, Mayor, for your service. We appreciate you. Is there any questions that I might answer? We always are looking for volunteers. I know that, you know, that doesn't sound attractive right now during the pandemic, but I promise you we're pretty safe. You know, my folks wear masks and we practice social distancing, but we can always use volunteers. So I will say to you all, you are welcome in our buildings anytime. We would love to have you, particularly when we bring these kids back to read with our kids. And just, you know, they've missed so much, and so many of these kids are coming from families that are not loving. So, you know, we're the only ones that provide them that type of, that feeling and that need. So please join us when you have free time, come join us.
Well, Dr. Adell, this is Lou Wetmore again. I can't thank you enough for joining us today, and I admire you greatly for being able to do this and not go screaming and yelling down the hall and pulling your hair out. I'm sure the stress level is formidable.
Well, I did have hair right here at one point, but it's all gone now. I didn't pull it out, Lou. It fell out.
I understand. Well, at the same time, I want to thank the Thursday Club for joining us today. We were certainly delighted to have you and appreciate you joining us today. Our next meeting, we'll have AJ Curley for the invocation, and our program will be from the Vice Chairman of the North Carolina State Board of Community Colleges, Bill Dreyer, and it'll be presented by Coy Hudson. So, in conclusion, if you each will join me with the four-way test, I would appreciate it. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank all of you for joining us, and have what's left of it.
Good job, Lou.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Lou.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Hey,
Program. Thanks for having us.